Coming up on Network Africa, Nigerian troops arrest a suspected mastermind behind recent bombings in Jos and Zaria. Then President Jacob Zuma and his Russian counterpart sign agreements on nuclear cooperation at the BRICS meeting. And later on, Italy bids a final farewell to migrant shipwreck victims. You're welcome to Network Africa on Channels Television with me, Cynthia Are. Topping our news today is what's happening right here in Nigeria. We understand that Nigerian troops have arrested the mastermind of bombings in the central cities of Jos and Zaria this week that killed at least 69 people. The Defense Ministry confirmed the latest development, but it's important to note that no one has claimed responsibility for the attack so far, but they bore the hallmarks of the Boko Haram sect, which has been waging a 6-year insurgency in Nigeria. The suspect was picked up at a checkpoint in the northeast city of Gombe on the fringes of Boko Haram's northeast stronghold. Well, two heads are always better than one, especially when dealing with a terror threat like that posed by Boko Haram. For that reason, the United Nations Envoy is pushing for regional action to be taken against Boko Haram. He's asking for regional efforts from West Africa. Well, in recent weeks, we've seen a high level of attacks from the Boko Haram sect, despite the collaborative efforts being made in West Africa by the likes of Chad, Cameroon, Niger, and Nigeria, and also the movement of the command center to Maiduguri. This week alone, like we told you earlier on, we've seen about 69 people perish in various parts of the country, like Jos, Kano, and Kaduna. The question is, what is missing? What is the missing piece of the puzzle? Well, standing by to answer that question and more is preventive terrorism expert Mr. Temitope Olodo. He joins us from London. Mr. Olodo, thank you very much for your time on Network Africa.
Thank you for having me, Cynthia.
It's always a pleasure. Now, I'm going to start by asking you that question. What are we missing in this equation to counter the sect? Because the frequency of the attacks we've seen, especially this week, are very, very disturbing.
Yeah, I think a lot of initiatives have been put in place by the current president, which is quite welcome within the security cycle in terms of moving the command and control center more or less very close to the war front or the battlefront, and more importantly, getting cooperations from our neighboring countries in the fight against this insurgency so that they're being boxed. I think part of the challenge that we have at the moment is that we do not have a proper containment strategy in place to ensure that places which have been rescued from Boko Haram or from this jihadist movement is actually properly managed or contained. So we have security services sweeping the areas, making sure there are no sleeper cells, working within the community to identify who are people that are meant to be in the community, who are not there, who are missing, where are they, more or less taking the teeth and the eyes. And I think that is where the challenge is. We do not have a proper holistic security strategy in place, which is being monitored and being evaluated to ensure that it's working effectively.
Now, you talked about a proper containment strategy. I'd like you to actually, tell us more about what steps should be taken in that direction.
Okay. I think part of the challenge is if you look at all the countries around the world that have been affected by terrorist attack, especially the United Kingdom and the UK, a report was more or less released in the public domain that more or less explained where the mistakes were, identified in the past, not for blaming purposes, but to identify the loopholes in the system and then close those loopholes. So in the UK, for example, they developed what we call the peace strategy and ensure that all the agencies are working in synergy to ensure that delivering what needs to be delivered in order to ensure community confidence and reassuring the community that the policies that are being localized are for their benefit. In Nigeria, for example, what we found out is that all these crowded places and the urban security strategy that we have are not really working. I'm not sure whether they are actually being monitored. So when you introduce an initiative, you look at it, is it working? Is it conducive? Is the community buying into it? If the community is not buying into it, do you need to adjust it? Are you speaking to the community to find out what is really happening? I don't think that synergy, that discussion is happening. So everybody seems to be doing whatever they believe is right. And what you're finding out is that, Boko Haram and, associated groups, are going to the same place to hit the same place again. And you're asking yourself, have lessons learned from things which have happened in the past be taken on board and embedded into the security infrastructure that we have at the moment?
Now, I do recall that a security summit took place in London a couple of weeks ago, which you participated in. I'd like to ask what the output of that was and what you've done with the findings. Basically, have you submitted, the output of those meetings or that meeting to the appropriate authorities that might be in case it's any help whatsoever?
Yes, we actually at the summit we came up with a lot of practical ideas, not just theories, but practical ideas of what needs to be done, and we came up with more than 24 practical ideas. All these ideas are coming from people that work within the security infrastructure here in the United Kingdom, in the police, in the counterterrorism units. There's a lot of Nigerians working in different areas, people that work with the military. And we came up with 24 practical solutions, which we have forwarded to the Nigerian ambassador in order for him to forward to Mr. President, and our wishes that will be able to help. And some of the practical initiatives we've come up with are things that could be implemented within the 90-day structure, 90 days or 100 days time frame that Mr. President is looking. Things that could be win-win for the president that won't cost the country so much money, but are soft, the counterterrorism initiative that could be embedded straight into the structure to help ensure or help solidify the fight against terrorism. We have sent that, and we're looking forward to Mr. President looking at that and more or less having that discussion with his security chiefs on how those initiatives could be used.
Well, as always, it's been a pleasure, Mr. Temitope Olodo. Thank you very much for joining us on Network Africa. We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Mr. Olodo is a preventive terrorism expert speaking to us from London. Now, it's not a good day for presidential aspirants in Uganda, as police have arrested a former prime minister who intends to challenge President Yoweri Museveni for the ruling party's candidacy ahead of the 2016 elections. The Prime Minister, Amama Mbabazi, was on his way to meet supporters at a town in Kenya, or near Kenya's border, when the incident occurred. In June, police had banned him from holding meetings to promote his challenge against President Museveni, saying their party had not yet nominated a candidate. Police also arrested another presidential aspirant, opposition leader Kizza Besigye, early this morning as he left home. Well, coming up on Network Africa, South Africa and Russia sign agreements on nuclear power cooperation at the ongoing BRICS meeting. Details when we return.